Hello, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about books. One of the most common questions that I get is, what books do you recommend? And I just want to start off by saying that I always recommend that you read books related to your specific goals. And that could be a nonfiction book that's helping you learn a skill or a tool that's going to help you work on a specific goal. It could be a nonfiction book that's going to help you mentally break through some issues or mindset struggles that you're having in order to accomplish your goals. Or it could just be a fiction book that makes you happy and brings you joy, and that is a goal in and of itself. So I am going to share all of the books that I have finished in the first half of the year and what my thoughts are, and if I like them, if I recommend them. But please always keep that in mind, that I encourage the books that you read to be directly related to your goals. So I've been debating this video for a while, and in retrospect, I would have done it quarterly, and I would have done the first quarter all by itself, but I waited too long, and now we're halfway through the year. And so I was going to do all of the books that I read for the first half of the year, but that is 25 books. It's the most books I've read in half a year in a very long time, and I'm very proud of that. But I just think that would be a really long video if I did all of it together. So I am actually going to split it up between nonfiction and fiction, but I think I'm just going to do that because I have so many books, and then going forward, I will do it quarterly and have both of them together. Let me know down in the comments what you would prefer. Would you rather I do 2 videos a year and do 1 nonfiction and 1 fiction, or would you rather I do them quarterly and combine fiction and nonfiction together? And as always, there are timestamps down in the comments, and so if we do a quarterly video and you don't care about the nonfiction, you can jump straight to the fiction, and vice versa. And I will also have all the book titles, so if I start talking about a book that you've already read and you don't care about my opinion of it, you can jump ahead to the next title. So let's go ahead and get started. Like I said, I have read 25 books so far this year, and 11 of them have been nonfiction. So in addition to sharing how many stars I gave it, actually, I don't even know if I'm gonna share that. You can go see that on Goodreads. If you follow me on Goodreads, I'll leave my account linked down below. You can see how many stars I give videos. I don't typically write a review on Goodreads. I should be better about that. I do always rate it. I give it a star rating, but I don't usually actually write anything. But what I'm gonna do, instead of just like giving my thoughts and going either in chronological or whatever kind of order, I am going to rank them in reverse. And I was inspired to do this by Jen Loves. I know I talk about Jessica Braun all the time, but there is another beauty YouTuber that I like that is, well, she used to be Jen Loves Reviews or something like that, and now she's just Jen Love. I'll leave her channel link down below. I've talked about her before. She does great FabFitFun video review videos, but she does her monthly favorites this way, where she does 10 makeup products or skincare, and she goes from 10 to 1. And so that is how we're gonna do these videos. So I'm gonna share the 11 nonfiction books that I have read so far this year, starting with the worst one. Doesn't mean I don't recommend it if it's the right book for you, but it was the worst one compared to all the other books that I have read so far. So number 11 was Unf Your Habitat, and this I picked up as part of Cindy's book club. This book did have a lot of value in it, and I will be honest and say I didn't participate really in the book club discussion in Cindy's community at all, because I still do not understand Discord at all. I just don't get it. So I did not participate in the discussion, so I don't know what kind of conversation was had over there, but I did feel like this book was relatively basic and it didn't really change anything I knew about cleaning. Now that the author says in the book that it depends on how you were raised, and so I think I was raised knowing more about cleaning than what the author kind of assumes about the general reader. The book, I think, is also very helpful, as Cindy chose it for those who struggle with some sort of physical disability or chronic illness that can impact your energy levels on a day-to-day basis. Now, that's not to say that, you know, a regular human doesn't have fluctuating energy levels, but it's very different. And I understand that I cannot relate to that experience. And so I do think that this book is helpful if you fall into that category, but for me, it just wasn't that helpful. All right, book number 10 was 100 Days to Brave by Annie Downs. I did love this book. I loved the structure. I loved having something to read every day. Kind of like the cleaning book, I do feel like this book was a little bit basic. Like all of the things that she talked about were pretty, I don't know, not like simple. They were simple things. Now, it doesn't hurt to be reminded of simple things. And again, I love the structure. So if you're looking for a daily devotional book, especially one about being brave and being more confident, I still recommend this book. But compared to the other nonfiction books I read, it fell in at number 10. Number 9 was also Annie Downs, and it was That Sounds Fun by Annie Downs. This book, I debated whether this was gonna be 9 and 10 or 10 and 9. It was fun. The book was fun. I laughed, I cried, I learned a lot about Annie, even though I do feel like I know a lot about her from her social media and her podcast, but I don't know that I took a ton away from this book. Like, I don't feel like I walked away with, like, besides that I need a hobby, I don't think I really walked away with any other, like, tangible life lessons. Did I enjoy reading it? Absolutely. Will I probably read it again someday? Yeah, because it's kind of story-like and it's enjoyable from that perspective, but it wasn't like, it didn't change my life. Okay, the next book, number 8, was Decluttering at the Speed of Life. And I do think that this book helped a lot in terms of decluttering. I got a tip from one of you who told me to listen to the book, the audiobook, while I packed. Now, I will say I'm not typically an audiobook person, so I did also check out the physical book from the library and read that as well. So I kind of actually read this book twice, but I think it was very helpful to listen while I packed. I do think that was a great tip and one that I will continue to give people if they want to declutter as they pack. I think there was a lot of value in this book. I think her system, like her steps to decluttering, are very helpful if you're somebody who struggles with that. I do think this book was very repetitive, and she says she does that on purpose, like she wants it to be repetitive, but it got old very fast. The next book coming in at number 7 was Group, and this is technically a nonfiction book, but it reads like a fiction book. It's a story book, but it's a memoir. I really liked this book because I felt like I could very much relate to the character. I felt like I was there with her and I really enjoyed it. I brought this book for our weekend away for my birthday when we did a little staycation. I finished it in that one weekend, really enjoyed it. I think it fell lower because, like, that sounds fun. I don't know that it changed my life. I don't know that I took anything away out of this book that I'm like, I'm gonna implement that tomorrow and it's gonna make a difference. But did I enjoy it? Absolutely. Okay, coming in at number 6, and now we are getting into the books that I like 100% would recommend that you read. Like books 6 through 1, I feel like are amazing books for pretty much anybody, regardless of goals. And number 6 is How Not to Die. This book is intimidating, it's massive, and it's got a lot of scientific information. I want to tell you, first off, like the last third of the book is all references. So it's not really that long. Like it looks like it's that long, but it's not really that long. It'll probably show up at the end of the year on my Goodreads list as like the longest book that I read, but like you don't have to read the last third of it. But it is so interesting, but also a little bit scary. Like basically what he does is he goes through all of the top ways that people die and all of the diseases that we get. And he talks about actual food and drinks and non-food, like foods not to eat, not to drink, that make a difference in surviving and actually like using food as fuel for your body. And can I say that I implemented absolutely everything he talked about? No, that's gonna take me a long time to do that. If you watch my quarterly goals video, one of my goals this quarter is to go through and write all the notes, because I've only done it for one book, which we'll talk about when we get to that one book. So I still need to go back and rewrite all the notes, and maybe when I do that, I will be able to see more like, what are the actionable things that he talks about that I can implement? The second half of the book is all about like actual food and not necessarily supplements, but nutrients that he says to get into your diet every single day, and what foods he eats to do that, and how he incorporates them, et cetera, et cetera. I think he also has a cookbook. Maybe I need to look into that, but it was so valuable. I thought it was so valuable. I want everybody in my life that I love to read this book. Okay, the next book, number 5, is the only book in this section, this top section, that I don't actually own, that I rented from the library. And somebody did ask me, no, I think the person on the live asked me about a fiction book, did I rent any fiction books this year that I want to buy. This is the only nonfiction book that I read this year that I do want to buy someday. I don't think I need it yet, because I think I got what I needed to get out of the book for my current apartment, but I want that book back. I want to reread it someday and own it when I move into a bigger space. And it is all about decorating and how to make a space feel cozy, but minimalistic. And not minimalistic from like I don't own anything and like I own very little, but from a fresh and a cleanliness place, and a not overwhelmed and cluttered place. And it just, the way she writes, I love it. I feel like I want to read her other books just because I enjoyed her writing style, but I also think that it was practical. Like this book did change my life. having a rug in every room in our home changed, except we don't have one in the bedroom, but also because our bedroom is so small, it's literally just the bed. So I feel like having a rug defeats the whole purpose. If we had a bigger bedroom with more space on either side, I would get a rug for the bedroom. That changed my life. Focusing on the rug, I forget what it is now. See, this is why I need a copy of the book. It's like focusing on the rug, the lighting, and the curtains before you do anything else is the most important thing. And honestly, I wish I had read it before we bought The Art Over Our Couch. It's too small. The Art Above Our Couch is too small. And I thought I Googled and I spaced it right, but it looks too small now and I wish it was bigger. What are you gonna do? It came from like another country. We bought it on Etsy, I can't send it back. But I just think that this book was very helpful. Even if you are in a house that you have lived in forever and you don't have any plans to do any massive redecorating, like you don't think you're gonna do any massive redecorating, I still would recommend this book because I think that you might learn a few things from the book. And she talks about just like rearranging things in your house to make it feel more like a cozy minimalist home. Just highly recommend. I really wanna read her other books. All right, book number 4 was How to Be an Anti-Racist. Another book that I believe every single person should read. I loved his writing style. It was so impactful, the way he alternated between real life story and practical, here's how you implement this in your current everyday life. It was so helpful. I feel like if I'd had one or the other, I would have struggled, right? If I had just read this story about this man's life and all of the things that he experienced, I would have been like, that's heartbreaking and what can I do? But without an action step on what to do about it. Or if I just read this whole book with action steps, not having the stories behind them to really almost hammer home the impact that those actions have by hearing a real person be impacted by those things. So just the way he wrote it was very, very impactful. I will tell you, it took me a while to work through this book. It's tough, but it's important. And so just keep that in mind. If you need to take your time with it, don't feel bad about that. Take your time with it, let it sink in, take a break if you need to take a break. This was probably the book on this list that took me the longest to finish, even though like the How Not to Die book was massive. Highly, highly recommend. All right, 2 and 3, I debated whether they would be 2 or 3. So we'll just pretend that there's a tie, okay, between 2 and 3. The first one is The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown. I've heard of Brené Brown. I know who she is, but this was the first book of hers that I've read. My stepmom talks about her all the time, talks about her podcast. I know that she went to Texas. She's from Texas, and I've been wanting to get on the Brené train for a long time, but this was the first book that I did it with. And I am so glad that I did. The number one thing I took away from this book, to be honest though, is the note-taking system. She talks about this note-taking system for nonfiction books, and she encourages you to do it throughout her book, and she even has pages in the back to help you through it, and it was amazing. I am still trying to figure out how to implement it into my life, and I might do it with color-coded sticky notes instead of she does it with like notes pages in the back. But the concept is taking notes with themed lenses. So instead of just highlighting for the sake of highlighting, what's the theme that this highlight falls under? Is it more education that you need to go get? Is it a quote that you just want to have a reference to? Is it within this specific book, there were themes of perfection, obviously, given the title. There were themes of shame. There were themes of joy. Does it fall under one of those themes? And then when you look back at your notes, it's not just a jumble of quotes over and over again. They're broken up into categories and like it makes sense. Now I've heard of this Commonplace book, if you've never heard of that. I know Amy Landino did a video on it. I think someone else did a video on it, where you have like all the notes from all the books that you've ever read sorted by theme like that. That feels very overwhelming to me and not something that I really want to attempt right now in my current stage of life. But doing it like that by book, I think is very reasonable and also very impactful for all the nonfiction books that I read, especially ones like hers that are, it's not like an A to Z, or it's not even like a list of food or a list of actions. Like it's how the pieces fit together for you and your life. Now, that said, the note-taking thing aside, the book is also fantastic. I also highly recommend the book, especially if you're somebody that struggles with perfectionism. Definitely read this book. And then number 2, tied with The Gifts of Imperfection, is Untamed by Glennon Doyle, who I am now 100% obsessed with. She also has a new podcast that I love, and I think she's so great, and I need to read all of her books now. I just picked one up from the library, actually. Anyways, Untamed was the first book I finished this year, the first nonfiction book that I read, and it was so eye-opening in so many ways. I think what I love the most about her book is that I related to every word that she said, even though I was thinking about something completely different, right? She is talking about breaking free from her marriage and her relationship. That didn't even cross my mind. Didn't even fathom that. Like I love Sam. Like, we're getting married, we're good. That was didn't even cross my mind. But I still related to that book, thinking about something else. So if you have hesitated reading that book, or thought, or like that book has felt like it doesn't apply to you because you're happy in your marriage and you don't feel like that's a struggle that you have, I still recommend this book, because there's likely something else that you don't realize. And that was me. I picked up that book because it was, first off, it's a beautiful cover, and second off, it was highly recommend. Like, it's been on the New York Times top 10 for like a whole year, and I had it recommended by a number of people. And I went into it thinking, I'm not gonna relate to this. Like, I don't have anything in my life that I need to, like, I'm not, her whole analogy about like being a cheetah, like, I don't need to run away from something. Just read it, highly recommend. And my #1 nonfiction book of the first half of 2021, should not surprise any of you if you watch my other videos, and that is Profit First. If you own a business, this book is a must-have. It is my new go-to gift for anybody in my life that owns a business. I need to reread this book like at least once a year, because it is one of those books that it's the actual actions, like the actions that you take to set up the profit structure and the accounting behind, not accounting like accounting has rules. All the accountants are yelling at me right now. Like the just the way that you structure tracking expenses and all of those kinds of things. Incredible. But also the mindset behind running a business and the idea of profit and the difference between profit and income and all those pieces of a business, especially as a business grows. And I just, like, it opened my eyes in so many ways, So this is definitely the #1 nonfiction book that I have read thus far. If you do not own a business, no, I do not recommend this book for you. So while you're like, that's a great #1 recommendation, Laken, but it doesn't even apply to me, I'm sorry. That is just for this half of the year. Go read Untamed or Gifts of Imperfection. But if you own a business, ask for it for your next gift. Or go buy it yourself. Business write-off. Profit First, hands down, the best business book I've ever read. So that is it. I hope you found this video helpful. Let me know down in the comments what the #1 nonfiction book that you read was in the first half of the year, if you read nonfiction books. If you don't, the fiction book video is coming very soon. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, please click that subscribe button. I upload new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday focused on helping you achieve your goals. Thank you so much for watching. That is helping you learn a school? I'll leave my link. Oh my gosh, that was awkward.